Well, the mayor has been able to hold the line on property tax, and there has been no sales tax increase, no additional revenues that way. Dennis, do you see that they're going to have to dip into that in order to maintain services down the road?
Well, I think the sales tax situation, what took place at Cook County last year, I think, if you take a look at your neighbors, they weren't real happy with it. I don't know if the mayor has the ability or the will to go down that road.
There is no political will for it.
No, there might not be a political will there, but there was a lot of dialogue going around City Hall about some sort of gas tax. Now, I don't believe it's going anywhere, but they might have to revisit that. And you can't always look at the workforce and say you're going to balance the budget on the backs of 80% of the budget, which means the working men and women at the City of Chicago.
But Alderman, are there any really viable ways for the city to increase revenue at this point in time, given the economic situation that we're dealing with?
I think if you're looking at a very deep recession at best, I can't see it. And so I think we're between a rock and a hard place. The only suggestion that's been made is that we use some of the discretionary money that was available from the sale of the Skyway. And that we might...
But the mayor seems to be reluctant to tap into that because he says it has to do with his ability to maintain the credit rating for the city.
Right. Well, the question is whether we're going to need it for operating expenses or whether we're going to need it to prove up that we deserve the favorable bond rating that we have. You're absolutely right. So he's worried about our credit rating. At the same time, we may find ourselves in June in a just incredible position, whereas Dennis points out, you've kind of cut to the bone already, and then what? No?
Is the idea of leasing still more city assets viable for either one of you?
I'm not sure it's anything we want to do in this economy. I mean, we're at rock bottom in terms of real estate prices. Yeah, it's a fire sale price, so I'm not sure that this is the best time to be selling assets.
What about the notion of a gas tax? Dennis mentioned it a second ago. I have heard the same talk around City Hall. Is that a viable option, do you think?
I don't think it's a viable option right now for this budget, but it might be something that folks are going to have to look at in 6 months from now in June. Just what the alderman is saying, that there may be just as steep as a decline in what's taking place today in the sales tax and the property real estate transfer tax. We may be looking at something in June that we're all going to have to face up, that we're going to have to find additional resources, and where do you get them? It's not like the state has them, it's not like the federal government has them.
What about these ideas of, perhaps a commuter tax or perhaps taxing people, making them buy a special license to drive into the downtown area, Alderman?
Actually, that's something they've done in London, I think, with
yes,
good effect.
Yeah.
But I don't think we've built a consensus of support for it here in Chicago, and I think we'll look to more traditional sources of revenue than something like that.
Alderman, do you think there have been enough cuts that made at the administrative level? We talked about the union cuts, the rank and file. Do you think the mayor can cut some fat from his staff?
Well, I think one of the things that I'm still hopeful we'll be able to do, and that is try to incent people to retire. They did that for the non-union personnel. I'm hopeful that maybe that's something we can work toward for the people who are in bargaining units so that we increase the number of people who are retiring. And I think there's also an effort afoot to encourage people to retire by the union so that they can save some of those jobs. People who are planning to retire anyway.
What about the mayor's public relations budget? The Tribune has done a series of articles, interesting articles, about the tens of millions of dollars the mayor is spending in order to get the message out about the city of Chicago.
I think the magnitude of it is hard to justify given the fact that there are information officers in every department.
Well, and Dane, I will say this, that was one of the bones of contention that organized labor had, and we really kind of demanded from the city and the budget director to make sure that it was a balanced deal, that you laid off as many managers as you were with the rank and file frontline workers, and it was like 32% management, and it was like 68% frontline workers.
So you're satisfied you got the best?
Well, you're never satisfied, Jack. I mean, you know how I am. I mean, I want to save as many of these jobs as we can, but things are difficult, and we want to work with the city. We want to be part of the solution, not necessarily part of the problem, and I think we've shown that through the actions that we've taken in the last 6 weeks.
Thank you.